What's up, everybody? My name is Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knocks Talks. Tonight's show is brought to you in part by Chrism Prairies, Prairie Sky Recovery Center, the Elizabeth Fry Society, and the Newley Institute. Tonight's guest, Tanis Rose, has 15 years of lived experience with concurrent mental health and substance use disorders. Tonight, she is here to share her story, and we are going to meet her right after this. It's not working. Why isn't it working? Shit. Why isn't it working? Here, we're just going to do this. There we go. Someone's crying. Yeah, there's the glitch. Nothing else can go wrong now. Why didn't that work? That worked when we tested it.
I spent 23 years living in addiction. 16 of those years, I worked as a Red Seal tradesperson in Saskatchewan and Northern Alberta. During that time, I made many mistakes and took more than a few hard knocks. I went from tradesman to business owner to hiding from gang members and dumpster diving. But with that lived experience, I've decided to try and make a change. I've dedicated my life to raising awareness and promoting change in the fields of substance use and psychological health and safety. So join me and my guests as we take off the blinders around mental health in our communities and at work and shine a light on what's working and what's not working in the fields of mental health and occupational health and safety. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and I'll be your host, and this is Hard Knocks Talks.
Oh, well, that part worked. Okay, so let's see what we can do here. We're coming for you, Tanis. None of it's working. Oh, that's not it. What's up, Tanis?
Hello.
Hello.
Oh. Hey. There we go.
How are you feeling?
I'm okay.
Good. So nothing's working suddenly for some reason. I'm not sure why. So are you ready to go into the flashback?
Sure. Yeah, I would just like to start off by respectfully acknowledging that I'm broadcasting live tonight from my home on stolen traditional territory and spiritual realm of the Stalo Coast Salish people, or people of the river, here in Chilliwack, BC.
And Hard Knocks Talks is coming to you from Treaty 6. Yeah, none of these are working. Just random. Okay, so why don't you start out telling us a little bit about what it was like growing up?
I grew up in Abbotsford, BC, so removed from the big city, but not quite in the country. So it's kind of suburban, I guess. I grew up in my house with one sister. My parents divorced when I was, I think, 8 years old. We had a really beautiful little house, me and my mom and my sister. I saw my dad really regularly. I'm really lucky in terms of things between my parents. Like, everything was always really nice between them. So there wasn't any struggle during drop-offs or anything like that, or any sort of ownership of days of the week. We kind of went with who we wanted to be with, and things were never a struggle or a fight, and everything was really pleasant between them. So I'm lucky that way.
Awesome. How were your relationships in school? Did you make friends easy?
I would say no, I didn't make friends easy. I think my closest friends came to me from sports teams and stuff, but also through like family friendships. So like my parents' friends' kids, then I would be close with them. But No, I didn't make friends that easily or keep friends that easily.
Hmm. And how old were you the first time you tried substances?
I think with the social acceptability of alcohol, where I'm from, I probably drank starting, I don't know, around 10 years old. And we smoked marijuana for the first time in grade six, so 11 or 12 years old. And then um, ecstasy and MDMA and mushrooms sort of started 13, 14. And then cocaine really took over around 15 or 16.
And how did that affect your schooling?
I'm an excellent actress, so I did get in trouble sometimes, but I was always able to really mask a lot. And like I like to say that I was kind of that mix between being both the really smart teacher's pet type, but also like the class clown who was always in trouble or doing something wrong.
Yeah. So, when you tried substances the first time, was it like, were you all in right away? Like, did you fall in love, or did it take a while for things to set in?
I was always super curious. Like, I had internet access pretty young, so I was just constantly like finding out what else there was and what else you can do and stuff like that. But also just meeting people who had that same curiosity as well. And so like the experimenting, um, it was exciting and fun and like lots of good fun memories like early on.
Hmm.
There was we were getting into trouble, but there it wasn't like taking over our lives. I was still playing sports and getting good grades for a while up until about grade 11.
Hmm. What sports did you play?
Everything. I played everything. I played soccer, volleyball, baseball. I played ultimate frisbee. I played basketball in the early on.
So, at one point, your dad got sick.
Correct.
Yeah.
And yeah, speaking of sports, like he was athletic and like he was my ball coach and stuff growing up. So that was really important to us. Like our relationship was, and yeah, he got sick in 2010. I was 19 or 20. And I was living in North Vancouver at the time, just out there. The Olympics were happening. It was an exciting time. And then when I found out he had been diagnosed, I kind of like dropped everything and moved home to spend time with him and help support my stepmom in the house.
Hmm. And how did that affect your substance use?
I was drinking really heavily around that time. I was already drinking really heavily around that time, but yeah, things got heavy, heavier,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of alcohol and a lot of cocaine around that time. Yeah, I was waitressing a little bit, but mostly at home or like over at my boyfriend's house drinking and doing
Mhm.
drugs. Like that was pretty much my whole life.
So, did you like reach out for help at any time during this point in your life?
No, I wasn't. I was like like just convinced I was kind of a lifer in that world. Like it was just kind of natural. I don't know. And a lot of people around me also like everybody drank and like the social acceptability of drinking even within my actual in my family it was just normal, right? So
Hmm.
you didn't think like, oh, this is a problem or oh, this could be a problem. Like even when it got me into some trouble, um, yeah, I know it was kind of like the Amy Winehouse song, like no, 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 like it was like a funny thing, right? Like oh
Yeah.
yeah, as if we'd go to rehab or like something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't. I didn't think I'd ever go to rehab either until I was 36 and homeless. So. So tell us about your 20s. Like, what was it like going through that point in your life?
Yeah, my 20s were tricky. Because my dad got sick early on in my 20s and was sick, and I was drinking heavily. When he did pass away, I things just like tumbleweed effect. I went downhill really quickly after that. I also had gotten involved in some criminal activity. So it was literally like my dad passed away in November of 2012. And like by September of 2013, I was in jail. Like it just happened that quickly. It really accumulated.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I spent the rest of my 20s dealing with legal problems, like from
Yeah.
that. So I spent a lot of the second half of my 20s on house arrest. Like I didn't do anything, but I got into opioids at that point, so I didn't have anything better to do. I was at home, I was miserable, alone, like isolated, and yeah, I had a 9 o'clock curfew for over 5 years.
So how did the court system treat you? Did they offer you any like resources or anything like that? What was that like for you?
It's an interesting story actually. So my charges ended up being out of Alberta, and I had about 13 different charges of possession and possession with purpose of trafficking. Um, I ended up being blessed with the financial means to have a really good lawyer at this point. Through the criminal activity I was involved in, I was able to afford this lawyer, and he did an incredible job for me. Being when you're charged outside of your home province, if you take a plea deal, they'll move the charges to your to BC for me, so that you can serve in front of a judge at home and then be sentenced at home instead of serving in another province. So I ended up getting a plea deal down from 13 charges. I pled guilty on one charge, and then they moved my charges home to BC, where I stood in front of a local judge here. And I had ended up having to get like a forensic psychiatrist type assessment done from some previous charges, actually. So I had already been in the mental health system and like on disability. So I know that that definitely played a good role. I mean, white privilege in itself played a huge role, I think. Being able to advocate for myself strongly, having a strong, affluent family to support me. Yeah, there's some other pieces in there that are just luck. I always say it's like that horseshoe effect for me, for sure. I was lucky. So I wound up like in Alberta, they wanted like 8 to 10 years or something originally for what I was charged with, and I wound up in BC in front of one charge, and they still wanted 3 to 5 years, and then the judge ended up actually giving me 3 years of probation with house arrest. So I had already spent about a year and a half, 2 years on curfew out on bail. So then I spent another 3 years on curfew, and it wound up being about 5 years with that curfew.
So were you using this whole time?
Yeah. Yeah.
So so you go through all that. You come out the other side. How did you end up coming out of that? Like, did you behave yourself and they're like, okay, well, enough's enough and see you later? Or
No, well, yeah, I did behave myself while I didn't do anything, right? So like I spent my whole time at home, like high, obliviated, binging Netflix, like doing nothing. I had no social life. I didn't get into any more trouble, which, that's kind of like what they want out of the criminal justice system. They don't want you to breach anything, and they want you to do well. So I guess I did well. I really, really isolated myself at this time. Like I was in severe amounts of shame and embarrassment, and yeah, extremely isolated, depressed. And like I said, I had kind of switched. I was drinking and doing cocaine. I had this big like party life, and then I switched into heroin and fentanyl, and so I just kind of ended up being really lazy and not doing anything with my time. So I did come out of it without any breaches on my charges and stuff, and was able to come out of, like, I don't have probation or anything anymore for like the first time since I was 13. It's been just over a year now where I've like haven't had to see a probation officer twice a month kind of thing. So I did get out of that, which is a piece of what I consider my recovery is, like that type of thing, right? Like recovery from the chaos of having the grips of the criminal justice system there all the time.
Mm-hmm. So what was the final straw for you?
So I was living alone in a pretty gross apartment, I guess, in Abbotsford, in my hometown, and things were really not going well for me with my mental health. So there was events where I would attempt to take my life, and this attempt was particularly gnarly. I guess I don't know. And I ended up in a hospital stay, and like my mom, my stepmom were involved, and it was kind of like, oh, it's hard to explain. So actually, the interesting piece about that hospital stay was that I was able to detox for the first time in years and years. I get everything out of my system, including the extreme levels of pharmaceuticals that I was on. I was on like 8 different things. It was crazy, but I was able to really get to a baseline for the first time in years and years. And the doctors got me onto Suboxone. So after that hospital stay, it was kind of like a point where, thank goodness, but my mom really was like, okay, like this is it, you're coming home. So that was a huge piece for me, like being back home for the first time in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So that year, there's a couple years there where like I was at home with my mom, and we were trying everything. I was on Suboxone, but I was still, sneaking back out and picking up whenever I could. And it was very much a roller coaster. You're on Suboxone, and then I wouldn't take it for a couple of days so that I could go out and use. And then I would use for a week, and then I'd be super, super sick and get myself back on Suboxone, and like nothing happened kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so it was very much up and down. Living at home with my family. And then it was probably about a year and a half after I initially came home, and then we ended up starting doing the applications to get into treatment centers.
Mm-hmm. And so tell us, what was the thing that got you through the doors?
I was really done. I was exhausted and just so done with everything. And I got into my first treatment center. I like really liked it at this one, and then I ended up getting kicked out just for something ridiculous. I think I threw like a coffee at the wall or something. Like it was always really. I got kicked out of a few places, and it was so frustrating to me and my family and other people supporting me, because it was never like, I wasn't like using or like sneaking away to use again. It was always something mental health related. It was always borderline personality disorder getting me kicked out, not the addiction piece. Like I wanted to be clean, and I would get kicked out. I got kicked out a few times in this year, and I stayed clean between, like I would have to reapply, wait 3 months, go back to another treatment center, and I would stay clean in those months between, like out of spite. Like it was an interesting time. So I went to a couple, got kicked out of a couple, and then I went to one that I really, really, it was really more authentic to me. It was in nature, so it was on a property, and there was, I got introduced to an indigenous sweat lodge, and there was Kundalini yoga, and it was very much a time of growth for me, and like finding my authentic self again, my true self again, because I was really lost for a bunch of years, like really acting, not being myself. It was really sad. Like I didn't know who I was trying to be. And so I was really finding myself at this time. I did actually get kicked out of this place, but they let me back in a month. It was an accident thing, but
Yeah.
but they did let me come back, and then I was quite successful at their program, and then then I got to come home. Like, then, so this is what happened. It was like 5 years of house arrest, about a year of residential treatment, and then I come home and it's COVID. So it's
Oh,
just like
wonderful.
isolation.
And then more isolation. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so what next? You're home. It's COVID. Now what? Was that a
Yeah.
turning point for you?
There was some turning points in there. Yeah, absolutely. But that year coming back from treatment and going back home to my mom's because it was COVID, like
Hmm.
it was like, well, what am I going to do? Go live in an apartment by myself kind of thing. Like there was very little socialization, as everybody knows. It would have been really isolating. So I lived with my mom again. I got an excellent job that I loved, and I burnt myself right out. I worked my butt off, like for the first time in my life with a really good, legitimate job, but I really overdid it and ended up relapsing. Um, and then it was like I just gotten this beautiful place and I was about to lose this job that I loved. And, my mental health was just going right back out the door again. And it was kind of like, okay, like, we're not going to let myself go back to there. Like, that was, my apartment and the suicide attempts. And like, that was the darkest. But this was like, I'm going there. Like, that's where this is going to go if we don't do something drastic, if we don't do something different. And so that's what happened. My mom and I, we did something different.
Hmm. So we're gonna do this then. Remember how I said I was gonna change the music?
Yeah.
Do you like it? Is it better?
Yeah. Funky.
So tell me, what did you do different?
So I had sort of found this new community. So it'd been about a year and a half. I was at a conference for the BC Center on Substance Use, and I met Gabor Mate. He was doing a presentation on psychedelics as medicine, and I was just like enthralled in this presentation, and wow, like the coolest thing. And then it was kind of just at the back of my head for a little while, and then when I got out of treatment at the beginning of COVID there and moved home, I was really working to get off of pharmaceuticals. That was a huge goal of mine. I'd been on just a plethora of pharmaceuticals for years and years, and it just wasn't authentic to me. I wanted to go a more natural route. So I was looking into microdosing psilocybin, and successfully did that for a few months and met some really great resources in the psychedelic community, people who are still friends now. And during my relapse, I connected with them like, look, this is happening again. My mom connected with them. She started doing some sessions with them and learning more about it. And so when I really kind of got back to that, okay, well, I'm going to hit a bottom again. This was kind of at the forefront of our minds, this new, well, not new, of course, we know it's not
Mm-hmm.
new, but new to us. And it is very much coming to the forefront of a lot of people's minds these days with all the decriminalization actions happening and stuff. But anyways, the therapies are still underground, and you really do have to know the right people and trust the right people. And thankfully we had those people, and they guided us through an incredible journey of healing and recovery. And it really started off with some sessions with who I would call a coach. She coached me through some guided meditations, revisiting trauma, really like getting to the root of what I wanted to change and like who I was and how I was going to find that person and be that person.
So
So that was cool.
was this before the psychedelic treatments?
Yeah, there was
Okay.
some lead up stuff to that for sure, to the main Ibogaine treatment in
Event.
December of last year. Yeah, so there was some lead up stuff for sure. Lots of deep digging. I did Cambo a couple times. So Cambo is a secretion from the Phylomedusa bicolor frog from the Amazon jungle. And what it does is it's a really strong detoxifier. And so you get some holes burnt in your arm, and then they apply the secretions to your arm, and it enters your body that way. And your heart starts beating, and you get like really sweaty, and then you're purging north and south, they call it. So expelling everything.
Yeah, we get
Heavy toxin, heavy metal toxins in your bile. So like you're vomiting water. Like you drink a ton of water, and then it gets to be like bile. And so a healthy bile when you're throwing up, or healthy, would be about a yellow or orange color. And one of my first treatments after coming off of like the fentanyl I was getting on the streets, it was like gray and black. And so the lady who was my facilitator, this incredible woman, she was just like, I've never seen anything like that. Like, what the hell is that? And like likened it to a demon coming out of my body and stuff. So it was it was quite profound time. And so I was still on prescription opioids during the Cambo treatments, and this was leading up to going into an Iboga ceremony. And I needed to get from where I was, got off the street stuff, and then I got onto Cadian, which is a time-release morphine that you take in front of the pharmacist every day. And so I was on quite a high dose of that, and I had to wean myself off over a period of about a month before Ibogaine. And then I was on some morphine the few days leading up to it. I went into Ibogaine ceremony with about 100 milligrams of morphine. Yeah.
Did your pharmacist know what was coming? Like, did he know, or she, or did they know?
I decided I was going to be super open. I told my family doctor what was going on, and he was like, well, you know what? You've tried everything else up to this point. Like, go get a poison arrow dart in your butt, or whatever he was kind of about it. But then my family doctor's a friend of the family, so he was supportive. Like, he knew the hell that we'd been through, and he was like, yeah, like, try anything, try voodoo, right? People say that, like, try anything, try voodoo. And so Ibogaine is a plant medicine from the jungles of Gabon in Africa, and they use it for really strong spiritual initiation into tribe. But in the 70s, it was extracted from the plant, and they have found that the Ibogaine hydrochloride was really effective at combating opioid withdrawal. And so when I went into the ceremony, I didn't take anything that day, so that I would have gone into withdrawal, right? I would have been miserable for 3 days. And I instead took Ibogaine, and it's over 30 hours of a hallucinogenic trip, you would say, a journey, where he's periodically feeding me more of the plant and more of the extract during that time, sort of boosters along the way. But I was laid up in bed for a day and a half, 2 days, just traveling. Really.
Did you eat and drink water or anything?
Yeah, no, that it was really important. I had a great support team. They like propped me up in bed and helped me with some soup, or brought me my water with a straw. But definitely they helped me do that. I wouldn't have been able to like cook for myself or anything like that. Most people have a problem even walking themselves to the bathroom. I had an absolutely beautiful ceremony space, so my bathroom was quite close. I was able to stand and get there and back, but that was the most movement I did. But yeah, for me, it was just like laid on my back on this incredible journey. And the reason that I will continue to advocate for modalities like this in treating addiction and PTSD, really the trauma is, like, as we know now, trauma is the root of addiction, most addictions. And so really being able to travel back to traumatic memories and reframe those is what these journeys are for. And for myself, I went into it with the intention, like, this is what I knew I was going to do. I was going to travel back in time, travel back to all these horrible places I had been, all these horrible times that I had been in. And it was incredible, really. Like, I have quite a photographic memory. So for me, my journey was very much a slideshow. It was just flashing in front of my eyes every place I had ever been, every house I had ever lived in, like 5 sense stimulation. I can smell my old house. I can see I'm there, right? And I think like the healing property in this is that I was able to go back to some of these memories that have caused me pain and trauma, and see them sort of from an omniscient view, like a third person view, and relive those. But then I would relive every alternate path that could have happened after that. So it's like exhausting. Like, it's like you're in a rocket ship traveling. The photos in front of you, it was very, very visual, but it feels like you're being pulled through space. Like, it's absolutely exhausting. But yeah, it's hard to explain. I mean, everybody is different. My experience ended up being perfect, absolutely perfect. The preparation that I did, the people that I worked with, it was incredible. And then the most important piece was some of the integration stuff that I did and continue to do. But specifically working with one woman who my family actually works with her as well, and she's incredible. And she really helps to integrate some of those pieces afterwards. Also, like, of course, I was still in withdrawal. Like, just because I couldn't tell I was in withdrawal or I was somewhere else, my body was still going through that havoc. So I also got like a massage therapy where she came and did almost a reflexology massage for about 2 hours the day after. I ended up going up to a spa in Whistler where they have like the hot cold treatments. So it was very much like an all around therapy package,
Mm-hmm.
1 week package. And then it was just happened to be that time of year where I went home and it was Christmas, spent with my family, like, so yeah, that's the piece of the puzzle where I'm just so blessed. I have this incredible, strong support system of my family and the resources to have different therapists and counselors in my life who have these, extra talents and abilities. So that is a huge piece for me. Is my family.
Yeah. So when you were on your trip, were you receiving therapies while you were navigating through your subconscious or whatever you'd call it?
I think traditionally in a lot of these types of ceremonies, you would have a guide or what would be a shaman or somebody guiding you through. I think, or I know for myself, I was able to do that for myself almost. I did have somebody there, capable guide at all times,
Mm-hmm.
A support person, but I went very much inside. It was very much a personal experience for me. I didn't say a word to anybody for almost 2 days. But there is, modalities with psilocybin and MDMA and ketamine where you're very much being guided back to these times. But because I had gone into it with so much preparation and so much intention, I really brought myself there and did the work myself, which it takes a lot of strength, preparation to do that. It also just takes, I don't know, I just have a certain ability to tune myself that way, I guess.
Yeah.
Meditate, etc. So
So
yeah.
when you said you were prepared, so they prepared you in a way for what you were going to see. Tell us a little bit about how they prepared you. Did they give you indications on what it might be like, what you might see, what you might feel?
No, not really, because you can't really tell that to anybody. It's
Yeah.
always going to be different. But in terms of preparation, like, I was already doing a really heavy meditation practice. I was already doing a heavy Kundalini yoga practice. So I was able to do like the mind body connection quite strongly on my own. But also like preparing me, as in like talking over some of my past traumas and like what could have happened differently, or what like, you know, what lessons did I learn, and how did that actually have bring anything positive to my life now? You know, it's really about reframing those traumas as lessons. For me, it was, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So that work, that type of work, trauma work, therapy. The one woman I mentioned, she is a psychic, but it's not like what you would see in a movie as a psychic. Like, she's just incredible. She's got an incredible connection to nature, which is hugely important to me. So just those types of people in your life as guides, really affirming authentic things for me, you know. It's really hard to explain. It's a very, very personal thing. Preparation, you know, preparation could look different for everybody. For my mother and I, preparation was, you know, going into the forest on a microdose of psilocybin and having a fire and smudging, and, you know, and taking walk through nature, like, but very much as a meditative walk, and paying attention to every leaf and every sound, and you know, inviting visitors on that walk with us from, you know, other places.
Other places. So
Yeah.
it sounds like your mother was quite an intimate part of this experience. That's
Yes.
yeah, that's amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about the cost? This sounds like you went and did a whole bunch of things. Surely that wasn't cheap.
Yeah, unfortunately, these types of treatments are not accessible, like, at all to most people I know that need to detox off of serious opioids, or can't afford to do this. So a Cambo treatment, um, for a detox like that, and a lot of people who practice with Cambo won't work with people who are on other substances. So you have to be really careful, right? And so, like, a Cambo treatment alone is upwards of about $300, and that's about 20 minutes. Different therapies, including psychic and other trauma therapies, $150 an hour. The Ibogaine treatment itself was close to $10,000 for about a week.
Mm-hmm.
That including the medicine, the accommodation, the food, the support, and it's not accessible, and
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. I do have the person I worked with Iboga is really pushing for clinical trials, and I think that that's going to be a huge breakthrough and a huge piece of treating the opioid overdose epidemic in an authentic way, especially when considering it's an indigenous medicine. It's a spirit plant medicine. So the overabundance and the disproportionate numbers of indigenous peoples in our country who are addicted and overdosing, this is something that could be authentic to them, specifically psilocybin being a North American indigenous medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the decriminalized nature movement is so important for that piece alone, decolonizing the war on drugs and the policies around these plants right now are really harmful.
Yeah. So
and that would increase accessibility, of course, when they're no longer criminalized.
Yeah. Yeah, that would open up a whole new market and stimulate the economy, I'm sure. And we could talk about the positives of this all day long.
Yeah.
So Iboga is quite dangerous. And you knew that going in. What did you say to your family before you began the treatment?
Yeah, it was, I mean, I was in a really weak place at the time, right? Physically. So the person who brought my Iboga therapist, he had me on a really strong like diet and supplement plan heading into it. He really wanted to strengthen my heart muscle. Yeah, Iboga can stop your heart. So it really is like well, it was for me at the time. Like I had experienced near death experiences multiple times that fall leading up to this winter, like just horrible things going in my life, overdoses and car accidents. And it was very much like, if I continue on this road, I will die. So like, it's life or death either way. And we need to try something new, and we need to do something drastic. And this felt authentic to me. It felt authentic to my family. Going, it's natural. It's a plant. That type of stuff is authentic to myself and my family. So going this way felt right, and it did. It helped me find my authentic self again. This year hasn't been perfect. Like, I'm not abstinent. I have had a pretty harsh relapse this year, but nothing like my past. Using I'm not able to lie anymore. I think that piece was given to me in Iboga, that piece of authenticity, of truth, of transparency, like with my mom. It's quite beautiful. Other things that Iboga had gave me back was like a childlike interest in nature, which is something super authentic to me. But just that time, the time last winter, so I spent with my mom and my stepdad, and even my sister and I are actually quite a bit closer in this last year. It's quite interesting. I hadn't really related that to that, but it is very much a profound time where it turned, and yeah.
So, coming out of your treatment, and going back, to your everyday life, what was that like? What was that transition like? Like, did it feel the same, or was normal life profoundly different?
Yeah, profoundly different. Again, I had lost a job going into this sort of rock bottom time. So I had lost a job. So I wasn't going back to a job. I did have work that I was doing. It was very part-time and virtually, which I had kept up actually over the time of this whole period. But going back to life, like I stayed at my mom's for like another month after Iboga, and just relaxed, and I really needed to integrate and spend some downtime. But then, yeah, coming home was tough. It was like just an empty shell of a place kind of thing. But I was really well connected online at this time. I have a beautiful community online in a recovery group that I was really active in at the time. And I spent a lot of time on that, a few times a week on that. And then I met someone. So it's been an interesting year of like, I never thought I would be in a relationship again. I kind of had resolved myself to being alone, and that's just that. And, so it's been an interesting year of falling in love, and I didn't think that was possible, and neither did he. So, yeah, that's taken up a lot of this year for me, which has been quite nice.
Cool. Well, why don't we move into the viewer's voice? We've got a couple of comments here and a question. If any of you out there have questions or you'd like to say something, get them in the chat right now, and we will look at them. Okay, so let's see what we got here. We've got a question coming in here from Harmony. Harmony, thank you for watching tonight. Thanks for the question. Harmony asks, the people giving you the treatment, were they indigenous medicine people? And how long have they worked with plants?
So there was a couple people that I mentioned working with, specifically Cambo. The woman I worked with, Cambo, she is not from the Amazon. She did live down in the Amazon and trained with the people down there. And then the person who brought me through Ibogaine, he's not from Africa either. But he's worked with the medicine for probably about a decade now. Um, yeah, it's a totally different. It would be a totally different experience, and of course, neither of these medicines are for addiction, right?
Hmm.
Like these are tribal medicines used for initiations and um, other types of spiritual journeys and stuff. But um, so typically, an indigenous medicine person wouldn't specifically be there to treat an opioid withdrawal, and that's very much what we were targeting at this time.
We've got a comment coming in here from Rand Teed. Rand, good to see you. Thanks for watching tonight. Thanks for the comment. Rand says there is some significant research on this plant that we have to remember. He goes on to say that have removed some of the psychedelic effects, but promote the brain rewiring.
Yeah.
We've got
Yeah, so if you're talking about the Iboga tabernathi plant, so for my experience, I actually took both. I took the extract and I also took the plant. So yeah, there's a different. I actually got both benefits quite solidly. So um, yes, the extracted piece really is the piece that works on that neuroplasticity. But then I was still able to experience the spirit of the plant through the Iboga.
Mhm.
So yeah, no. Thank
Okay.
you
Rand
so
goes
much.
on to say, Rand says the best outcomes are seen with people who use the Ibogaine for the detox portion, but then continue through psychosocial rehab.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was able to microdose the plant. I was able to microdose Ibogaine for about a week after my treatment, and then I had some that I took about a month later during a sweat lodge ceremony. But then, yeah, I did continue on with some like group therapy sessions and some integration stuff. I also did a really interesting course with a plant medicines therapist. She works primarily with ayahuasca, but I did a course with her in the spring. It was a trauma informed plant medicine facilitating course, and there was like a ton of integration stuff there, and that was really cool. But I also got to kind of learn like what it would be like to facilitate these things for other people, and that's something that I would really like to get into.
Got another question coming in here. Not sure how well you can answer this, but Robin asks, were these treatments done in BC? And he points out that he doesn't need a postal code.
Yeah, I can answer that in the next question too. Like, where do they do the treatments in my home? So, yeah, this was all done in BC. I was not fit for travel at all at this time. Like, absolutely not.
Mhm.
It's all done in BC underground therapies. In terms of something like Cambo, like that's like a 20-minute thing you can do in your own bathroom with a facilitator. Whereas for Iboga, I actually got to go to a beautiful ceremony house, had a gorgeous like loft to myself with like this big standalone bathtub in my own bathroom, and the woman who was cooking for me, like she had owned a vegan restaurant, so like the food was incredible. But it was like so unfortunate, some of the days I could hardly eat, but it was just like such good food.
Mm.
Again, it's really like knowing the right people, and like thank goodness that I did.
So when you're going through this, I mean, it sounds like you had communications, like when people are serving you food, when they're, making sure you get to the bathroom okay. Like, were you able to communicate with these people at the time, or were you just like lost in space?
No, no, you really with Iboga, like you can go, like you can sort of bring yourself. Like I was able to bring myself to travel, but then I could bring myself back to like walk to the bathroom too. But then it's like right back to bed, back out.
Back out again.
And yeah, like I mean, I'm on my phone all the time, but I wasn't able to text for a couple of days, so there was that piece kind of like no. Um, but no, I was checked on like every regularly, like every couple hours. But there was somebody literally in a chair like 5 feet from my bed at all times.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, well, the questions have died down. I
Oh,
think
I
we've
see
covered.
a question here that,
Oh,
yeah,
wait, yeah. Here,
this is a
let me put
yeah.
it on the screen here. I can't see the whole thing either, actually. Um, it's just for the audio. We have to read out what the question is. So,
Mhm.
Harmony asks, you're gonna have to actually. Can you read the question out? Because I can't see the whole thing on my end.
Yeah. Yeah, this is tricky. What advice would you give to somebody seeking these types of treatments? We know that sometimes people fall into the hands of the wrong people, predatory people. And I have heard lots about sexual trauma in medicine. It's horrendous. People who are not trained and may re-traumatize people. It's awful. And it also does go back to this, like decriminalization and making it more available. But at the same time, then you find these pretenders who, they just want to be a shaman. Like, you can't just be a shaman. So, yeah, no, I learned quite a bit about this in that course that I took, talking about some of these horrific things people have gone through in plant medicine sessions. And I don't have experience with that myself. Advice giving for somebody who is seeking treatment, like for myself, I only found these people because I started getting involved with the Canadian Psychedelic Association, which is a nonprofit here working on the decriminalization movement. And I just sort of met people, they became friends. And then when I was going through hard times, they stepped forward for me. So I don't have advice on like where to go or a website or like who to call kind of thing. Like, unfortunately, that just isn't a thing right now.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Harmony goes on to say, there are many people who are bastardizing Indigenous cultures and profiting from Indigenous knowledge.
Indeed, there are.
Indeed,
Yeah.
there are. Yeah. Okay, well, I think. Is there anything you'd like to share?
Just on that point, I guess the one piece about doing Iboga with not somebody who is Indigenous, he worked really hard to educate me on, what it is used for in Gabon, and watching endless documentaries on young men going through these initiations on it and how it's used and the stuff that and the things, the processes and all that. But the one of the really important pieces of Iboga is the music. So I did have the Bwiti tribe is what the tribe is called in Gabon, who this medicine is indigenous to. And so I was listening to Bwiti music the entire time. It is exhausting music. It is beautiful, but it is very fast paced. So I did have to change it sometimes to something a little more meditative because it's very elevating. But it was really important to him to like bring that piece into it because that is a tradition that this medicine is used while this music is being played and made. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, is there anything that you'd like to leave us with tonight?
Not really. I'm so tired. Sorry. I don't know. Happy Halloween.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Tanis, for joining us this evening. I really appreciate your experience and your insight. And take care, my friend.
Yes. Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care. There is power in numbers. If you would like to contribute to ending the stigma around emotional pain, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Like and comment your thoughts on our posts. Let us come together with our lived and living experience as a resource that has the power to engage new thought processes, to promote new ideas, to broaden the spectrum of care, and to show the world that the lie is dead. We do recover, and we're here to show you how. Good night.
Thank you.